Breaking news right now on Pawn Stars: Chumlee, whose real name is Austin Lee Russell, just agreed to a plea deal that will keep him out of jail. The same Chumlee we laughed with on Pawn Stars now has a dark future ahead of him, and it's not just because of one bad night. It was dozens of illegal weapons, hidden gear, and a house full of things no one expected. The happy snack-loving collector turned into someone the police feared not to be filmed. Chumlee, whose real name is Austin Lee Russell, grew up in Henderson, Nevada. He got the nickname Frosty when someone told him he looked like a cartoon walrus, and it stuck. As a child, he and Corey Harrison became best friends, and by the time he was 21, Chumlee was working there full-time. A few years later, cameras came in, and the shop became one of the most popular reality shows on TV. But what happened next would have shocked everyone. By 2010, Chumlee had started his own brand and was selling shirts, stickers, and bobbleheads with his face on them. Fans loved it and he made a lot of money. Rick Harrison even bought into the business that same year. Chumlee made more than $160,000 from sales, people lined up to meet him, kids wanted selfies, adults laughed at his silly antics, and he actually learned something. "Rick, you like to argue a lot, I don't like to argue a lot, and you guys turn it into arguments. You like to argue a lot, for sure." Everyone saw him as the nice guy who liked snacks and old stuff, but things weren't so nice behind the scenes. In 2016, everything went crazy. The police went to his house not to sign autographs, but to look into a serious claim. During the search, they found a shocking amount of illegal drugs and weapons, some of which were loaded and others without papers. There were more than a dozen long guns and handguns listed in the police report. Some of them had been modified, and others were hidden in odd places like drawers and behind furniture. Along with the weapons, they found baggies, scales, and strange equipment that wasn't used to buy gold coins. This looked more like the setup of someone who had gone way too far. He was arrested for both the drugs and the weapons, which added up to almost 20 serious charges each. According to the deal, Chumlee could go to prison for 2 to 5 years if he breaks it. He was arrested in March after police raided his home and found 12 guns, along with marijuana and meth. Then there were bigger hits related to earlier investigations that made the case even worse. He posted bail, went to court, and made a deal where he admitted to having one gun illegally and trying to hold on to controlled substances. The judge gave him probation, counseling, and told him to give up his weapons. After 3 years, he would have a clean record. On paper, it looked like he had a second chance, but it didn't work out. Rumors kept spreading, and people saw him with the wrong crowds. Some said he was doing things he wasn't supposed to, while others said he just couldn't break old habits. It wasn't long before the police showed up again, but this time they were ready and had new evidence. Reports showed that he didn't follow the rules, skipped out on court conditions, and had been hiding more than just candy wrappers. This wasn't just one mistake, it was a pattern that led back to bad decisions. With the old charges still pending and the new one adding to them, the judge gave him a much harsher sentence: life in prison with no chance of parole, no third chance, just bars and a number. This is the kind of sentence you don't get out of. When Pawn Stars was at its peak, he was the breakout star, and fans crowded the store hoping to see him. The judge didn't laugh as he went over the charges, the evidence, and the missed steps. It all added up to a sentence that shocked even the harshest critics. When he wasn't at the pawn shop, Chumlee wasn't just selling snacks and t-shirts, he had also started selling collectibles. He opened Chumlee's Candy on the boulevard right next to the pawn shop, and people loved it. It had shelves full of old-school treats, colorful sodas, and signed merchandise. He even stopped by. In 2021, he talked about opening more stores and starting other businesses. He also revealed that he had lost a lot of weight, more than 150 pounds, by changing what he ate. He stopped eating red meat and junk food and went to the gym almost every day. He even wrote about his health journey online, and pictures of him looking happier and slimmer showed that he was proud of the changes. "When I first started working the night shift, I didn't have that much experience here, and being the typical 18-year-old kid I thought I People in town must have heard about it pretty quickly because I bought 6 fake Rolexes. But he wasn't just trying to lose weight before surgery. He had tried dieting and exercise, and while they helped for a while, the weight came back. That's when he decided to have surgery, a full gastric bypass. He said it would help him stay active and boost his confidence. Fans cheered on social media, but behind the scenes, other parts of his life were falling apart. When he stopped posting on social media, people knew something was wrong. His candy store account stopped updating, and his personal pages went quiet. The same guy who used to share Pokemon finds and old toys had disappeared. Then the news came out with all the charges and details that painted a different picture than what was seen on TV. People started rewatching old episodes to find clues and signs they had missed. Some said it was in his eyes, while others said he seemed off in later seasons. The truth was that no one knew what was going on. Few people really knew what was going on with that happy-go-lucky guy, but the courts and police did, and now everyone else does too. He had fame, money, fans, met comic book legends, traveled to conventions, made his own retro-style video game, and sold shirts with his name on them. But somewhere along the way, that wasn't enough. The spotlight faded, and decisions got worse, and now Chumlee isn't just a TV memory, he's a headline memory that keeps getting darker every time it's updated. If you've ever been in a pawn shop thinking you'll leave a millionaire, get ready for the beautiful disaster we call ridiculously angry sellers. First up was the guy with a box full of plastic candy heads and Pez dispensers that didn't have any candy in them. He thought he had found the holy grail of sugarless nostalgia. Batman with a grimace and Mickey with a smile that hadn't been seen since the 1960s put a $5,000 price tag on the whole set like he was moving. Ancient scrolls said those little toy heads were worth their weight in diamonds. Someone offered $1,000 for one. The man looked like his soul had left his body. He called it an insult and a disgrace to the Pez community, as if there were a senate of plastic collectors somewhere making laws. 50 pieces of zero candy all the rage. Then there was the guy with the bronze statue of a big horse with buff myth guy riding it naked like a beast from a comic book cover. He called it Pegasus and said it was made in 1888. They made fancy old statues and were proud of the fact that they had the name Emile Peard ready. They said it was worth $6,000 but could go as low as $5,500. When they turned it over, they saw that it was clearly stamped on the back in English letters that it was made in the United States. The patina looked fine, but then they saw the pits and cracks that showed the truth. The statue was probably cast in the 1950s or even later. They didn't want to hear it, they said the shop was lying, they said the team didn't know what. Tell the truth, his eyes, not the label or the evidence, looked like his dreams had been shattered with a hammer. The Madonna planner was a thick little book full of doodles, hearts, notes, names, and numbers. I don't know much about her, but she's been a huge star for decades and many people consider her the queen of pop. She does have some huge fans who would pay a lot of money for this. The owner said it was her real day planner from 1988 and had birthdays, phone numbers, quotes, doodles, and hearts all over it. The person who saw Sean Penn's name held it up like the Declaration of Independence and asked for $25,000, thinking it was a pop culture holy grail. The person who looked at the handwriting said it looked real but didn't scream value, saying it was worth maybe $10 to $12,000. The seller looked like he got punched in the gut and said much higher offers had come in before, but he wouldn't budge when the pawn shop guy offered $4,000. He got angry right away and called it insulting. Talked about how important Madonna was and said it was a favor. He walked out with smoke trailing behind him. Next up was Led Zeppelin's Big Moment. A man walked in with what he said was the real thing, a first album signed by all 4 members, Jimmy Page on the front, Robert Plant, John Bonham, and John Paul Jones on the back. Jimmy Page wouldn't sign the back because the front was his baby. He asked for $22,000 and thought he had a museum piece. The autograph guy took out a magnifier and looked at the pen strokes and said the ink was. The flow was good, the signatures were solid, and it was called rare. Then the number 10 to 12,000. That front-back split doesn't look good, makes it hard to display, and kills the vibe. The seller looked like someone told him his car just got towed. He started to explain, talked about history, and said that rarity didn't matter. The offer came in at $8,000. "Hey, this is really amazing," the seller said. "Led Zeppelin is one of the best rock and roll bands of all time." Trying to get $175 didn't work, so they left muttering something about knowing the real value now for the craziest one, a float, not a boat, a street-legal pirate float, a pirate ship on wheels with a bar, lasers, fog machines, stages, and a big screen on the back. The owner said it could be rented for parties and go 60 miles per hour on the highway. It was worth $250,000, it was made of African mahogany, it had a monster engine, they wanted to sell it so they could build something even bigger. The pawn guy took it for a spin, laughed, and had a good time. Then he got a text message from his boss that said, "Do not buy." And just like that, the deal was over. The owner looked shocked and angry, like someone had crashed a parade float into a wall. He offered to lower the price to 190,000 rupees, but there was still no deal. He kept saying that it was being given away at that price, and no one would buy it. Right when you thought things couldn't get any crazier, a sword with a. When history walks in and out of the pawn shop, a man walks in carrying what looks like a miniature sword from a fantasy movie. But then you see the trigger on it, and it turns out to be both a sword and a pistol in one. Pretty crazy, right? He wants $20,000 for it, which might not be crazy after all, since it's really old, from the late 1600s or early 1700s, and wasn't just made to look cool. In the past, hunters used these strange little weapons to kill wild pigs after hitting them with a musket. As a backup tool, they'd stab the animal if it flinches and shoot it if it charges. Rich people took these into the woods because they wanted style and function. This one even had silver on the handle, making it look really nice. Here's the strange thing, even though it was made in London, people didn't really hunt wild pigs there in the 1700s, they were mostly gone, so it was probably made for someone from Germany by a gunsmith who moved to England after starting out in the Netherlands. He made high-quality gear for wealthy hunters. Now comes the fun test. If this thing still works, it proves it was built for a reason and not just for looks. They pack up and go to a shooting range, where they put a melon on a post and test it. First, they pretend to stab the melon like it's an injured pig, and then they pull the trigger. It goes off cleanly, with no problems. Everyone is impressed that it works, but the expert still doesn't go near the price he says it might fetch. $12,000 is still a lot of money, so the seller shakes his head and leaves, thinking he might have better luck somewhere else. Then someone walks in with a bunch of old field passes. These aren't printed tickets or copied stubs, they're shiny, official-looking passes from the American League, dating back to the 1920s and used to get into baseball games and even on the field. These weren't passes that fans just picked up, they were given to insiders. The seller got them from a great-aunt who knew a sports writer for 20 years and got these passes every year. Hookup: most people would have thrown away those passes when the season was over, but this woman kept them all. She has a full set that is clean and neat, and the seller wants $2,000 for them. They seem rare, but the problem is that these aren't the very early ones, they're very rare, and she has sets from many decades. Most sports writers would have thrown these away at the end of the season, but these aren't worthless or gold either. The dealer is offering $1,000, which is $40 per pass. The seller says, "No thanks," and leaves, likely going back to the museum she mentioned. Now here's a medal, not a toy medal, that was given to someone by Pope Francis. One side of the medal shows two women and a child, and the other side says, Pope Francis. The story is that the guy's dad was a photographer in World War II and took pictures in Japan after the bombs fell. Years later, the Pope saw those pictures and gave the son a medal to honor his dad. The story is heavy, but the medal isn't worth much money. Hundreds of them are sold online for $40 to $75. They are not rare, they are mass-produced souvenirs. The shop passes, but no money changes hands, the seller keeps it, which is probably best. Then there is the sparkle. Someone brings in a tiara that isn't made of plastic and isn't from a costume store. It's covered in 220 diamonds set in an old-fashioned setting. The tiara used to belong to Ida McKinley, who was married to President William McKinley. Her husband was known for being very protective of her and would fire anyone who said bad things about her. It was made by a well-known jeweler from the time and has ties to the White House. It even appears in photos from that time, so it's real history. The seller wants $75,000 for it. An expert comes in, looks at it carefully, and says it might sell for that much somewhere else, but that doesn't mean the shop can pay that much. The best offer is $43,000, but the seller doesn't budge. They take it back and leave. Finally, a bunch of comic books, 7 full boxes, came from someone's house. Uncle, no one really checked what was inside, it was just a mix of colors and pages. The seller wants $2,000, but that price isn't going to happen unless there's a rare gem in there. The dealer looks through a few spots and finds some old ones that are worth maybe $50 or $100, but most are worth a nickel each. The pages are yellowing, there are no plastic sleeves, and there are no surprises in mint condition. The final offer is $500 for the lot, which is about $70 per box. The seller thinks about dragging the boxes back to the car, but says, forget it. Sometimes you win, and other times you just make room in the garage. Do you think this is fair trade or highway robbery? Let us know what you think below by clicking like, leaving a comment, and subscribing for more stories where trash and treasure change hands.